Darkness gathered around Suzuki Satoru and formed a swirling vortex. Then, a gurgling sound came from bubble-like objects around him, and demons were born from the abyss. The first to appear were demons below level 10. There were a total of 128 of those inferior demons. There was no other word he could use to describe them other than deformed. Their heads were swollen, their left arms were unnaturally thin, their massive right arms were made of several tentacles twined together, and their legs were of different lengths. They did not possess anything to tell their gender apart, and yellow pus oozed from countless small holes all over their bodies. Their forms seemed to imply that they had been born solely to pollute the world. These demons, made for destruction and slaughter, were not under Suzuki Satoru's control. Instead, they attacked everything around them. Given the circumstances, the only one near them was Elim, and so they attacked it. And as the demonic horde began their attack, "You miserable little demons! Out of my way!" Elim's roar brought a smile to Suzuki Satoru's face. That was it. After abandoning the surface zombies on its head, Elim's body began moving again after regaining its eyesight, forming thick tentacles of zombies. Over 20 tentacles shot out at the demons. One could not defeat the demons by swatting them one by one. However, the tentacle zombies grabbed and bound the demons, then dragged them into Elim's body. It was very difficult for lesser demons to resist the strength of 10 odd zombies. The demons which were swallowed up were immobilized and brutalized, and soon they were reduced to vile dross and returned to the netherworld. However, that was fine. It was fine because it was like this. One could say that it would be troublesome if he had taken a long time to beat them. He had summoned them because they were very weak. Perhaps it might have been more troublesome if Elim did not know they were demons, and treated them as powerful foes. Having won his bet, Suzuki Satoru did not let a mocking smile show on his face. The bubble-like objects around Suzuki Satoru formed into a vortex again, and now demons of around level 20 appeared hell scythes. These demons looked like a fusion between praying mantises, humans, and other creatures. Their gigantic scythes shone with a steely glint, and they were coated in poison. There were 64 of these demons in all. Much like the inferior demons from before, they spread their praying mantis-like wings, and flew towards Elim. Perhaps he was starting to panic because of their numbers, but Elim's body began to riot. Then, tentacles formed of dragons, giants, and other mighty beings hurtled towards the demons. One of them extended towards Suzuki Satoru. Wall of skeleton. The wall that appeared clashed with the tentacle. It was incredibly fast and tremendously massive, but that alone made it a very powerful attack. One could say it was like a car driving straight at him. The wall formed of countless bones could not resist that overwhelming destructive power and was destroyed. At the same time, chunks of flesh from the zombies that made up the tentacle scattered in all directions as said tentacle broke through the wall. What? Too late. Time's up. As Suzuki Satoru, who had been quietly counting down in his head, said that, the clock which foretold doom had finished the circuit, and both hands once more pointed to the sky. In that moment the world died. The land became a desert. Even the air became a thing of death. Zombies of all kinds, there were most definitely more than 400,000 of them, and quite possibly more than 1,000,000 rained down on the desertified land. Suzuki Satoru flew back, clearing a large gap between them. The demons needed to breathe, and so that spell had caught them in it and killed them too. But that meant nothing to Suzuki Satoru. That was because Elim's true form was completely exposed at last. That mass of undead creatures had truly been made in imitation of Elim's body. They looked very similar, but his true form looked very graceful in comparison. It was an undead dragon, with a body like a feline predator, whose legs and neck were both very long. At the same time, black bubbles appeared around him, and from them emerged demons of around level 30 or so, rotting demons. They were over 2 meters tall, with tarry black skin that resembled bubbling swamps. The bubbles rose to the surface and burst, releasing a yellow mist. Despite being surrounded by these demons who were wreathed in rot-inducing gas, Suzuki Satoru was not affected, because he was undead. There were 32 of them in all. Suzuki Satoru shrugged. You shrunk, Dragon Lord. So you were the filth of the Dragon Emperor. That spell, that powerful panoply. I would never forget it. Its voice echoed with heartfelt hatred. Suzuki Satoru remembered that the brightness Dragon Lord had said something along those lines too, and kept his eyes trained in Elim. Of course he did not forget to press the button on the bracelet which had his friend's voice stored in it. Don't you think it's a bit too late to notice that now? Your gesture act was truly magnificent. I was completely deceived by your charade. The black bubbles appeared again, and the demons which appeared this time were around level 40, supplicants. They had female bodies with long hair and bluish-white skin, and that alone would not make one think that they were demons. However, their eyes, noses and mouths were all sewn up with thread, and their hands were also sewn together as though begging the gods for mercy. There were 8 of them. Elim used his foreleg to sweep aside the rotting demons that flew at him, killing them in one blow. The summoned demons charged at Elim in unison, as though they had been waiting for that chance. However, pure Elim trained its crimson eyes on Suzuki Satoru, entirely unmoved, as though it wanted to indicate that Suzuki Satoru was its only opponent. It lashed out with its forelimbs, wings, and tail, destroying the demons one after the other. Pure Elim was completely unaffected by the supplicants' eye or the rotting demon's rotting gas special attacks. It was probably not just because it was undead, but also because it had resistances to them. The demons changed over to attacking with magic, but due to the differences in their levels, the damage they dealt was insignificant. As Suzuki Satoru watched all this, he remained as cautious as ever. Originally, Suzuki Satoru had placed pure Elim in the same category as the brightness Dragon Lord. It would be child's play for such a powerful being to wipe out demons like that. If Suzuki Satoru took a combination attack like that, even he would have taken great to disastrous levels of damage. Of course, he had no intention of taking it. More black bubbles spewed forth, and the demons which appeared were around level 50 war devils. There were demons who wore full plate armor and looked like warriors. They held bastard swords wreathed in black hellfire, and their black wings protruded through their armor. They actually looked pretty cool, and there were 4 of them. Normally, the spell would summon 2 level 60-ish demons, and 1 more level demon of around level 70, but Suzuki Satoru cancelled that, and instead chose to summon more lower level demons instead. And so, there were twice as many level demons ranging from level 10 to 30. This was when the spell's effects ended. The War Devils used their skill, the Commander-type buff which improved the abilities of all summoned demons. However, pure Elim used its long tail to sweep back and forth, destroying the demons, as they pulled away to cast spells. A minor stat buff meant nothing to a high-level dragon. Pure Elim seemed abnormally calm as it neatly exterminated the demons. This isn't good, Suzuki Satoru thought. It would be better if it had continued underestimating him like just now. Now then, time for you to die. Wait, are you really in such a rush? I'd like to ask you something. What's that? Die without regrets part. Can't you even spare that little bit of kindness for me? I have no mercy for your kind, you fools who pollute this world. Pure Elim coiled himself up with a whoosh. Dragons resembled feline predators in some ways, such as their dexterous movements. Pure Elim's stance must mean that it was planning to pounce on its prey, Suzuki Satoru. It would seem it planned to ignore all the demons around it. Of course, that was not a mistake. If Suzuki Satoru were faced with beings that could harm it and beings that could not harm it, then it would be obvious which ones he would be wary of. After deciding he could no longer bide time, Suzuki Satoru began goading pure Elim. While his place was to make his opponent act without being able to calm down, he had the feeling that it would be ineffective, given that his adversary was undead. Phew, where has your smile gone? What happened to your laxity? Take your time. Pure Elim's eyes narrowed in hate. And savor your destruction, filth of the Dragon Emperor. And then, as though casting those words behind it, pure Elim began to sprint, its feet crushing the zombie corpses flat. Even so, they did not affect the speed at which he was closing in. The War Devils which had flown between the two of them, were struck by its charge and were knocked far away. While they had not been killed in one hit, their injuries were such that they were practically dead. Oi, Suzuki Satoru smiled as pure Elim closed in. I'm not done attacking yet. A black orb floated in the air. It fell to the ground, as though waiting for Suzuki Satoru to speak. This sudden development led pure Elim to spring far, far away, keeping its distance from Suzuki Satoru. How had it managed to cancel its previous velocity and suddenly retreat, as if in defiance of inertia? The fallen black orb ruptured like a bag of water hitting the ground, or like a ripe fruit splitting open. Its contents spilled out, a black tarry substance that did not reflect the light at all, a sticky black fluid that looked like it would dye anything it touched jet black. It swallowed all the zombies. The black mud-like substance soaked his feet, but Suzuki Satoru was not afraid. He kept an eye on pure Elim, who was busy destroying demons. Suzuki Satoru made no attempt to attack, and seemed utterly at ease. A tree grew between the two of them. There was 1 at first, and then their number went up. 2, 3, 5, 10. There were tentacles, waving despite the lack of wind. Yeah. Suddenly, he heard the adorable bleating of a goat. And it was not just one of them, it made one think that there would be a whole horde of them. As though pulled by that sound, the tarry liquid emitted a hollow moan, and then something seemed to emerge from it. Those beings were abnormal, far too abnormal. They were roughly 10 meters tall, but there was no telling how much that number would be if he included their tentacles. They looked like turnips, but with countless black tentacles in place of their leaves. Their thick roots resembled lumps of flesh, and below them were 5 legs, like those of black goats. The root portion, that is, the lumpy section, was fissured and split open, in more than one place. Even pure Elim simply watched the proceedings warily. It did not seem to have any intention of attacking. That reminded Suzuki Satoru of the Dragon Lord he had fought before. So that's it. These guys, they've never fought beings on their level before, or at least, not often. Sensing an opportunity, Suzuki Satoru smiled, and then... Yeah. The adorable bleating of ghosts came from those fissures. They were moths that oozed sticky drool. The 5 fearsome monsters which had appeared were called the Dark Young. They were monsters that appeared in numbers proportionate to the victims of the spell tribute to the Black Bounty Ishub Nigurath. While they did not have any potent special abilities, they had exceptional defensive power, and they were over level 90. Ho ho, this is a high score. Elim, it seems the people you sacrificed for your stupid plan all along for your death. That was impossible. The dead could no longer have wills of their own. However, that might be possible in this world. The idea that the Dark Young had taken the last wishes of the dead onto themselves refused to leave Suzuki Satori's head. Their tentacles were extremely long, and they seemed eager for Suzuki Satori to give an order. Perhaps that was the case. Alright, go. The Dark Young bleated and charged at Elim.